Hi, Tina Peters here.
See, today they go after you if you're investigating or like.
Hello, welcome to The Truth Matters. I'm Victor Avila, guest hosting for Tina Peters today, and very honored to do this. Tina personally asked for me to do this for her today because of what I've been up to. If you don't know who I am, I'll tell you a little bit more about me before we get started. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to border security, homeland security, illegal immigration, and everything that's going on. I'm trying to clear up a lot of the information that's out there, some of it true, some of it not. And so thank you to Tina for giving me this opportunity to do this today and let her know that we all still stand behind her. Let's get started. Oh, there's so much to talk about. First, let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a retired ICE Homeland Security Investigation Special Agent. I worked in a lot of capacities in my career. I worked at the state, local, state level, local level, and obviously at the federal level, but also the international level as a U.S. diplomat in Mexico, Central America, and Europe. And I've investigated a lot of different types of crimes, anything that has to do or has a nexus to our border. Regarding our homeland security, we're talking about all kinds of smuggling, human smuggling, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, bulk cash smuggling, yes, human smuggling, human trafficking, which is my subject matter expertise. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And of course, the cartels and organized crime that we have been, heavily affected in this country when it comes to those individuals. So I'm going to bring you a little bit of my knowledge. I retired in 2015, but that hasn't stopped me. I have continued to be able to stay on top of the situations, especially the last 4 years. As you guys know, with everything that's going on, I've been to the border. I'm from the border, originally from El Paso, Texas, but I've been visiting the border many, many times the last 4 years, trying to get a grasp of the nonsense and craziness that we all witnessed. And yes, unprecedented times. Well, guess what? Now we got unprecedented times, but in a good way, because you're, I think, going to see, and if you're not already seeing, things that have never been done before under the Trump administration, that people are sometimes confused because they've never seen this before, because this has never happened. Well, I think there's going to be a lot more of that to come. And so, let's start with illegal immigration. And we have a problem in the country when it comes to illegal immigration. And actually, we have a problem when it comes to legal immigration as well, because it's not fair to the people wanting to come to this country legally and have done it the right way. And I think most of us agree and want that to continue to happen the legal way, through the legal channels and the legal avenues that this country affords them. A lot of people that actually do go through those legal avenues are waiting 10, 12, 14 years to get their residencies, and they have been vetted and they have actually been pushed to the side. And the illegal immigration is the one that's taken all the attention. And obviously, the Biden administration allowed millions and millions of people from all over the world to enter the country. One of the things that just kind of is, I'm going to just be talking to you as things come up in my mind, as this is one of the first times that I've done this, but there was a couple of things that have been hitting the news. One of them is that President Trump has annulled all of the parole permits that were issued during the Biden administration. And I said this many, many times that the people that were granted these parole permits under the Biden administration were going to find themselves with no status. And here we are. I don't like to say I told you so, but I knew that these paroles were issued illegally, just like the CBP One app. They were all, there were policies that were invented by the Biden administration that are obviously illegal, and President Trump recognizes that, and so now he's revoking those type of statuses. Why? Because they were not issued in good faith. In other words, they were exploiting certain policies and procedures that are meant for something else other than allowing people into the country. A parole, by the way, is a permit that's issued to a person that doesn't have permission to come into this country for very, very specific reasons. There's different types of parole, like a public benefit parole, a law enforcement parole, and of course, a humanitarian parole. That's the one mostly that was exploited by the Biden administration, saying that everyone was in kind of a humanitarian crisis, so you let everybody in under that system. Well, incorrect, and now they have find themselves with no status. And I think some of these individuals are going to self-deport. And if not, you've heard Tom Homan and the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, say that if they don't leave, they're going to be encountered and they're going to be removed. Regardless of criminal history, I know that the focus right now is to get rid of all these criminals and illegal aliens with criminal histories, prior deports. I mean, just in the news yesterday, and I talked about it in the news today about this individual, another one that was allowed into the country in 2021 under the Biden administration. Yes, he walked up to Border Patrol. They allowed him in, and he killed a lady. Kind of the Laken Riley cases again, and we're going to continue to see these, unfortunately, more and more because these individuals were not vetted. One of the things that a lot of people think that we have to, these bad guys have to have, a tattoo of Tren de Araguas, attached to their neck or tattooed somewhere on their body, and that's not true. Yes, some of them do have these tattoos hidden around their bodies, but that doesn't necessarily give them away. There's many, many Tren de Aragua members, especially the hierarchy, that do not have any tattoos. And it's a matter of questioning them and interrogating them to find out exactly who they are. And that didn't happen. So they allowed them into the country, and now they're wreaking havoc all over our communities. And so the crime is something very intolerable to me, that we already have a big problem with crime in the United States and amongst our own U.S. citizens. And we have problems with the criminal justice systems at the state level and federal level, where a lot of these judges and a lot of these DAs are allowing these people to commit crimes, and there's no consequences for them. They get released, these revolving doors, either no bail, and they get out and commit an additional crime, even more serious crime sometimes. Well, that's something that we obviously have to deal with here in the US. But to me, now on top of that, you have millions of people from all over the world coming into the country and committing some very heinous crimes in our communities, even against the immigrant community, because some of these people, that's where they come and live. And so the legal immigrants, by the way, one of the things that I say a lot is immigrant versus illegal alien. They're not the same thing. The left wants you to think that they're all immigrants, and they'll say that President Trump is deporting immigrants. No one's deporting any immigrants. They're deporting people that, first of all, are here illegally. And if you happen to be qualifying for deportation because you were here with a visa, like that guy from the university, it's because you're violating the terms of that visa. If we give you a student visa, it's because we want you to come into this country to study. That's it, not to be an activist for Hamas. And so that's not going to be tolerated anymore. And those visas will be revoked, which then finds you with absolutely no status and then eligible to be removed. One other thing that we talk a lot about is the term deportation, right? Let's deport them all. Well, not everyone is deported. There's a lot of people that are removed from the United States on very, very different types of administrative processes and immigration processes. There's voluntary returns, what we call a VR, expedited removals. And a deportation is actually when someone is actually deported. That means that a U.S. immigration judge ordered them deported. By the way, there was over 700,000 individuals under that category alone that a judge ordered them. They went and they pled their case, and the judge says, no, you are ordered removed from this country, and they never left. And so that's another big chunk of people that ICE and these other agencies are looking for. There's a big chunk of gotaways. If you heard about the term gotaways, we have different categories of gotaways. We have gotaways that Border Patrol in the last 4 years were able to detect and see individuals coming in through sensors, video cameras, and such, and they just weren't able to go get them because there wasn't any manpower down there. And so they came in. That right there is about 2 million of them. Yes, about 2 million gotaways. Then you have the unknown gotaways. These are the people that were smuggled into the country completely undetected. And so what's happening right now? We know what the problem is. We know what the problem has been in the last 4 years, what the ripple effect of open borders does and illegal immigration. Well, here we are. What are the solutions? What is the Trump administration doing and what they're going to do? Well, a lot. One, I already mentioned, they're revoking the status of a lot of these people that are violating the permits that they're here, visas and other stuff. Even if you're a lawful permanent resident, what we call a lapper, if you're a lawful permanent resident, it means just that. You're a resident. You're not a naturalized U.S. citizen. And there's certain rules that you have to abide by. You cannot commit crimes involving moral turpitude. CIMT, you probably never hear that term a lot. But there's a list of crimes that if you commit, even if you're a green card holder, you will be removed. Now, after the Laken-Riley Act was passed, there are more crimes in there, even less serious crimes that you can now be qualified to be removed. So if you're a lawful permanent resident alien in this country and you don't commit crimes, you don't have contact with the police because you're a law-abiding resident, then you have nothing to worry about. But if you're out there committing crimes, you can be removed. The same thing I talk about the Hispanic community. If you're a naturalized U.S. citizen, you have nothing to worry about. That's not what the priority is of this administration. The priority are the bad ones. And so let me tell you a lot of what's happening right now. ICE, DEA, FBI, and all these task forces are going out and looking for bad people. We have these packets on them. We have the information of where they possibly work and live. And I'm going to separate work from where they live right now. So let's say we know where they reside at. They go to this place. They go and they hit this location to go look for this individual who's illegally present in the country. And when they do come in contact with that individual, there's 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever other illegal aliens with that person, male or female. Well, now the discretion doesn't exist for that ICE or immigration official to not do anything about it. The previous administration under the Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, they said, oh, if you're here just because you're illegal, we're not going to go pick you up. That does not exist anymore. So they've been calling these individuals collaterals. That means that they're the collateral damage because they're hanging out with their cousin or their friend who is a criminal illegal alien. They're going to pick both of you up and they're going to process you and they're going to remove you from the country. That's the difference. And so that's why people are saying, oh, they're deporting people that don't have criminal histories. No, they might not have criminal histories, but they're definitely illegal in the country. And the reason that they were encountered is because they were hanging out with someone that is illegal with criminal history, and that's why they're getting picked up as well. So you see a lot of videos online of, oh, they took my husband, and there's crying, and they're going to pull at your and tug at your heartstrings. But you never hear the story of them telling you the entire story as to why they're deporting that husband. Well, that husband possibly has some criminal histories, has been arrested before, and he's a target. And they're going to pick him up and remove him from this country. If you remove yourself now and use the app that has been created now, kind of the opposite of the CBP1 app, you will then be eligible to possibly come back into the country. And that's a good thing. What they want people to do is remove themselves, regather themselves, refocus, come back, apply, and do it the legal way, and then come back. And I think there's going to be some possibilities for that group of people to do it. But if ICE has to come out and get you, that's going to be off the table, and they're going to bar these individuals from ever coming into the U.S. So what's happening at the border? Big changes. One of those changes is the military at the border. Now, when I was an agent, very used to working with the National Guard. The National Guard has always been a partner with us. As a matter of fact, we had a National Guardsman in our investigative group, and they were analysts and helped us a lot in our investigations. Now they've taken on a big role. So the National Guard, especially in Texas, a lot of them have been deputized. What does that mean? Deputized means that they've been given immigration authority. They've been given Title VIII authority that now, if they see an illegal alien coming through the border, they can now detect them first and detain them, and then give them order to Border Patrol. But here's the difference. Under the Biden administration, you heard all these terms, and it came out that all these numbers and all these statistics were actually incorrect in the way they presented them, because they said, well, we apprehended 200,000 people, we encountered 200,000 people. Well, yes, they did, or they arrested 200,000 people, and yes, they did. However, they were released. The majority of those detected and apprehended under the Biden administration were released into the country under the catch and release policy, which no longer exists. The difference when you hear it now, under the Trump administration, say we arrested 1,000 people, those 1,000 people didn't make it into the United States. That is the factor. They never quite clear that up. And so those 1,000 individuals are being detained and removed immediately from the country. And so that's a big difference that's happening. National Guard now has the authority to do that. In Texas, over 300 Texas DPS troopers are helping ICE as well. If they're on a highway in Texas and they stop a vehicle and they think that person, not because of the way they look, but because of the person doesn't have a driver's license, they possibly don't speak the language, many other factors here, by questions that the troopers pose, and they determine that this person more than likely is illegally in the country, they now have the authority, because they've been deputized, to detain that person and bring them over to Border Patrol for processing. So those are huge changes. Now, the biggest one is active military. We have active duty military on our border. I don't know if you guys heard last week, we had these big strikers, these vehicles that look like mini tanks that were deployed down there in El Paso, and I think Arizona as well. And these vehicles, these military vehicles, are incredible because they're able to do a lot of things, gather a lot of intelligence. One of the capacities is they could see up to 2 miles with their cameras. And so they're able to report back to the border agents that might be at a different area, to come to a certain area where there might be some activity of not just illegal aliens, but drug traffickers and cartels coming in that direction. So why is the military present in, right now on the border? Well, it has to do with the cartels being designated as foreign terrorist organizations. This is something that I have been advocating for a long time, myself and a lot of my colleagues, that these cartels needed to be designated just like ISIS, just like the Taliban and Al Qaeda, because that's exactly what they evolved to. They've evolved to become terrorists. They have terrorized Central America and especially Mexico for a long time. And what does that terrorism look like? Well, it looks like murder, kidnapping, extortion, robberies, and you name it, they are involved in it. The cartels are involved heavily in under corruption of politicians, the police, and many other aspects. They're involved in extorting the lime growers, the avocado growers, the petroleum people. So they have their hands in a lot of things, making them billions and billions of dollars, which then allows them to operate freely in Mexico And guess what? Here in the US as well. So the last 4 years, because there wasn't any enforcement at the border, the cartels made it into the United States. Now, I'm not saying they just came in the last 4 years. They've been here for a long time, but they weren't here the way they are now. Now they're here permanently. They're here. The way I say it is they have reps all over the country, right? Pushing their fentanyl poison and cocaine and methamphetamines and heroin. Let's not forget about the other drugs. Right now, my intel sources are telling me that cocaine is just through the roof right now coming to the United States. There are airplanes, U.S. aircraft flying from South America into Central America and Mexico full of cocaine and being smuggled in the US. As fortified as the border is right now, they're still trying to make the way into the United States with the drugs and the human smuggling, and yes, the human trafficking as well. And since I mentioned those two right now, let me tell you really quick: human trafficking and human smuggling are not the same crime. They're two separate crimes. Human smuggling is where the illegal alien pays a cartel member a certain amount of money to be smuggled into the country, and that's it. It's over once they get to their final destination. Human trafficking is the exploitation of that individual forever until they die or they don't need them anymore. Usually women and children, women into the sex trade, sex slave trade, and obviously children as well. But let's not forget about forced labor. There's a lot of forced labor from illegal aliens here under the watch of the cartels. So these cartels are now terrorists: the Sinaloa cartel, Cartel Jalisco New Generation, the Gulf cartel, Familia Michoacana, CDN, it used to be the Zetas. And the Zetas are the ones that are responsible for the murder of my partner. If you guys recall or don't know, when I was working in Mexico in 2011, my partner and I were ambushed by Los Zetas cartel and shot at over 120 rounds. My partner was assassinated next to me, and I'm here by the grace of God after being shot 3 times to even be able to tell you the story. And so I know firsthand the evil that the cartels stand for and what they're capable of. And right now, Mexico is at a huge war, not only at a war with us when it comes to the drug war, if you will, but in Mexico, the Sinaloa cartel has been split, and it's the war between Los Chapitos, which is El Chapo's sons, and the Mayos, which is Mayo Zambada's nephew and other people. And they're literally at war. Their heads are being chopped off, and people are burned alive. People are being gutted as they're alive, and their hearts are taken out of their chest, and gruesome videos out there that I don't even want to see. They send them to me, and I don't even want to see them. One of the latest things that one of my sources told me is that in Mexico, they've always trained young people, but now they're really focused on attracting 12, 13, 14-year-olds up to 17-year-olds, when in the US we consider them unaccompanied minors. So when you hear the term unaccompanied minor, what do you think? You think it's probably a 6-year-old. Well, it's not. It also could be a cartel murderer, sicario, rapist that's 17 years old and that has been trained by that cartel in the use of these sophisticated weapons. And so those have been highly recruited lately, especially by the Cartel Jalisco New Generation. And Cartel Jalisco New Generation, instead of paying them a certain amount of money, they're giving them territories in Mexico, like neighborhoods that are backed by the Cartel Jalisco New Generation. And so they take this individual, the people there in these villages and towns know that that young 14, 15-year-old is now going to be the leader of their area because he's backed up by the cartel. And guess what that crazy kid does? Well, he starts extorting them. He rapes whoever he wants, he kills whoever he wants. He gathers more people and becomes powerful and kind of becomes his own mini cartel with the big brother backing him up, which is the Cartel Jalisco New Generation. So this is the type of involvement that these terrorists have come to. And I think it's important in the US to understand them because you have to understand the cartels and the culture that's attached to that in Mexico in order to be able to combat them successfully. And so, having said that, the designation of these cartels as FTOs is a game changer. You're going to start seeing one of the major things that this designation does, and I know everybody's thinking military, right? When is the U.S. going to go in the military? But that's not quite the first thing. The first thing that happens is we get to go after their assets and all of their illegal proceeds that they have obtained with the illegal sale of drugs and humans. And so we get to seize their bank accounts, their properties, their cash, their boats, their houses, whatever it is that they have and bought with that money. We now get to seize it because they're terrorists. Also, we get to go after people that are helping finance them. So if you're a gang member or anybody in the U.S. associating with these cartels or helping them, if you're a teacher, if you're a lawyer, if you're a gang member, if you're an attorney, if you're an accountant, and you help the Sinaloa cartel or any of these cartels that made the list as terrorists, we get to go pick you up too. Just like if you were associating with ISIS. So if an American starts associating with ISIS and starts talking to an ISIS member online, we're not going to tolerate that, right? We're going to go knock on that door and pick them up and interrogate them to see what the heck is going on. Well, it's going to be the same thing here with any American that is helping finance or associating themselves with any of these cartels. It's exactly the same thing. And so we get to question you a very different way than we used to question you even when I was an agent. So investigative techniques are changing. They're evolving because obviously they're very different now because we're dealing with terrorists. So what about the military? Well, the military does play a role here. It does allow, this designation allows for our U.S. military to intervene. And I believe they might. I don't think that's going to be the first thing that they do. Obviously, Mexico pushes back a lot, and they remind us every opportunity that they have that they're a sovereign country, that they're not ever going to allow the U.S. to do that. Well, my response to that is that we're a sovereign country too, and you've violated that sovereignty for I don't know how long, and not just Mexico, but all the countries represented all over the world that came through Mexico into the United States. Mexico had the ability to do something and did nothing in the last 4 years. As a matter of fact, in the last 3 months, since President Trump became president and his administration has taken over, I don't know if you're paying a little bit of attention to what's going on in Mexico, but all of a sudden, people are getting arrested. Drug lords are getting arrested. They're seizing fentanyl. They seized 2 tons of liquid methamphetamine the other day. They're taking down super labs. And they found and discovered an extermination camp just a couple of weeks ago in the state of Jalisco. And you heard that right, an extermination camp of human beings that they were being incinerated, killed, tortured, and killed, like a mini Holocaust. They found like 400 pair of shoes in that area. And of course, the Mexican government denies it. They said it was a training camp for the cartel. Well, that doesn't make it any better. Training, murder, extermination camps. This is what the reality is in Mexico, not in the Middle East, not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan, not in Syria, right here next to us. And so I think this is a big, big deal. So Secretary Noem, I'm sorry, from DHS was in El Salvador, going to pay a visit over there because they had graciously allowed us to, deport some of our bad ones and bad people, and especially Tren de Aragua gang members from Venezuela, by the way, who are also terrorists now, to their facility there in El Salvador. But we are paying them for that, by the way. But I think most Americans are okay with their taxpayer money being spent this way. This is one of the ways that we're using our money now. Also, Gitmo and Guantanamo Bay is another place that is growing, and they continue to accept people. And because one of the things that the reason they have to do that is because there's limited ICE beds in the United States. I think there'll be more There are plenty of contractors out there waiting to get these contracts for beds, so we can increase the number of beds in the U.S. and detention facilities. One of the things that I suggested for a long time is to use the facilities that the Biden administration built as processing centers. I've been to a lot of them. I've been kicked out of a lot of them in El Paso, in Fort Bliss, in Eagle Pass, in Del Rio, in Laredo, in Zapata County, all over the place. In Donna facility, remember that one? They're huge, state of the art, but they were used as processing centers. They need to be converted, I think, into detention facilities to put beds in there so people can be illegal aliens can be designated correctly. We're not going to put 11-year-old little girl with her mom with a 17-year-old possible gang member illegal alien. They're going to be separated. They're going to be taken care of. They're going to be protected before they get removed to their home country. And so I don't know what's going on with that. I hope some of them were being torn down. Some were being, they're not occupied anymore, but I really hope that they use them because we already spent the money. They're already there. And so that's one of the solutions that we could use to increase the bed space here in the United States. Because what does that do? That gives Tom Homan the ability to go pick up more people every single day. You have to have somewhere to put the body before you go get the body. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. Why don't they just go round up all these people? Yeah, but where are you going to put them? When I was rescuing victims, human trafficking victims, and I was going to go do the raid and rescue them and arrest the trafficker, that's all fine. But I had to make prior arrangements as to where I was going to put these victims. And now the victims is very different because they are traumatized. And I needed to find sometimes secret locations around the US where they would be protected because a trafficker sometimes will still be looking for them when we weren't able to get the trafficker. So all these arrangements had to be made because you're now dealing with a human being, a body, whether we like it or not, whether they're a killer or not, we still have to take them into custody, and now we're responsible for them to be able to be removed or whatever it is that we're going to do with them. And so this is one of the issues right now that's happening with ICE, that they're I think it's going to come through with the contracts after Doge kind of sees where the money is. I think that a lot of the money is going to be appropriated to DHS and ICE for the purposes of detention facilities. So going back to the cartels, as you guys know, these guys are responsible for a lot of fentanyl poisonings. And my friend Derek Maltz, who's the acting DEA administrator, and another friend who's the head, Roman Gabriel, who's the head of the Sold Out Youth Foundation, which is an educational program on educating our youth on the use of fentanyl. We talk a lot about the fentanyl poisoning. We call them poisonings. We don't call them overdoses because there's a big difference. Now, are there people in the United States that are overdosing on fentanyl, that they knew they were taking fentanyl, they wanted to take fentanyl, and then they died? Yes, of course. But that's the minority. The majority of the deaths in this country are even from people that are drug addicts, even from people that have used drugs. They didn't know that the cocaine or the heroin that they're using is now laced with a deadly dose of fentanyl or xylazine. These other, chemicals that they put, these are man-made, lab-made drugs. Even marijuana is being laced with fentanyl. And so it's not the same marijuana from the 1960s and 70s. These synthetic drugs are very, very, very powerful, way more powerful than they were before. And the synthetic form of fentanyl is so dangerous that I've met so many families that have lost their loved ones to a poisoning, families that their daughter had never in her life used an illegal drug, but because she had a surgery, an oral surgery in her mouth, and ran out of Percocet for her pain, her friend says, I'll go get some from one of my buddies. Well, guess what? She's dead because that Percocet was a fictitious fake pill that was laced with fentanyl. And it happens every day at a rate of 300 people a day. Think about that. We're suffering about 3 9/11s a month in this country. 3 9/11s a month. Well, we wouldn't tolerate that. Imagine if planes were running into buildings 3 times a month in our country, something would be done, right? But for some reason, because fentanyl is in a pill format or is a synthetic powder or in form, people have been doing nothing about it. And nevertheless, we have real victims in this country that have lost their loved ones and have been separated indefinitely from them. The same thing with methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is a big problem. As I go around the country speaking to police groups, meth is a big problem because they might not die, but they're hooked on this meth, and this meth is very powerful as well. And what happens? They go out and commit a lot of crimes, especially property crimes, and they elevate those crimes until they get their fix. And this is a big problem in communities. Meth. Now, like I mentioned before, cocaine making a huge comeback right now. The cartels kind of scaled back a little bit on fentanyl. It doesn't mean that there's no fentanyl in the country. There's enough fentanyl here already to kill us all, probably twice over. The problem is that right now, or the good thing, I should say, the cartels are kind of pushing back because of the heat on fentanyl and the penalties if you're caught with fentanyl. So they said, we're going to go back to our cocaine and heroin days and methamphetamine to still make the money. They're still smuggling it in. As secure as the border is, they're coming in through the ports of entry. They're coming in through some gaps in the border, and don't think that it's still not coming in. It is coming in. Now, it's coming in a lot harder, which pushes the price up, and there's more violence because of it. There's a ripple effect because of that. So we want to get to the point where we have control and utter stoppage of these illicit drugs. And how do we do that? Well, you got to eliminate the cartels. And so Mexico is going to play a vital role here. Now, you heard President Trump. He put on the tariff, the 25% tariff on Mexico. Then he took it off. Then he put it on. And he took it off again. Because this is, I think, a negotiating tactic on his part. Because the 25% tariff on Mexico would be horrible for the country. It would hurt them tremendously. It might hurt us initially at first, but the U.S. can absorb that penalty, and Mexico cannot. And Mexico knows that. And so right now, they're trying to appease the Trump administration. Let's get these bad guys. Let's send them the 29 cartel lords that we had in custody, one for 40 years. The Caro Quintero, that responsible for the death of DEA agent Enrique Camarena back in 1985. We finally have them here. So we extradited. They send us 29 bodies all of a sudden. So they're trying to do something, but it's not enough. We have to go after the active ones right now as well. And I think there's a lot of things in the work by the Trump administration that, going back to when I started this conversation, are going to be things that are unprecedented, that we've never seen before. But that's the way we have to approach this. So as you can see, there's so much here: illegal immigration, the cartels, the deportations. Let's talk a little bit about these deportations and how they're going after and looking for them a little bit more than what I just mentioned earlier. When it's very difficult to remove a person because of the policies that have been implemented and the bureaucratic paperwork that has now been included since the Obama days. If you remember, Obama, they call him the deporter in chief. Why? Because it was a lot easier to deport somebody back then. I think he deported over 3 million illegal aliens. Think about that. 3 million illegal aliens deported under President Obama, and no one said a word. Nobody cared. But now Trump, deports 50,000, and they're up in protesting, and they're out in the streets protesting. And I don't understand the difference. It's the same thing. The difference here is that it's harder to deport somebody today because from back then, the Obama administration, to now, they have included so much crap, if you will, into removing a person. It's not as easy as people think it is. First, there has to be a lot of information to determine where the alien came from, what country they came from, where they entered, how they entered, and if they have any affiliation. Did they ever have a permit coming in? For example, if you're an illegal alien that came into this country with a visa and you overstayed your visa, yes, you're an illegal alien. Nobody cares that you came here with a visa. These people think that they have some kind of a special priority because they came in legally with a visa, but because that visa expired, you're supposed to leave the country. The visa is only here for the certain amount of time that was given to you. Now, not for 10, 15 years. So when that visa expired, you became an overstay. You are now eligible to be removed. As a matter of fact, that's one of the groups that you actually can remove. And as soon as you get them, take them back across the border. That's the exception. All these other people have a lot of what you've heard in the news, the due process, right? Now, not due process for terrorists. And that's what this judge was blocking. Oh, they didn't give them due process. No, they're terrorists. It's very different than the due process of other illegal aliens that came into the country illegally. And so that due process is very, very complicated. That's why we need to put them in a holding facility and process them, some for 2 or 3 days, some for 2 or 3 weeks, some for 2 or 3 months. That's just the way it is. We have to contact that country. Now Venezuela is taking their people back. But these countries fight, believe it or not, they fight for their own people not to go back to their country. And President Trump obviously is not going to tolerate that. And want to make sure that they go back to their home country or the surrounding country that they came from. As a matter of fact, the Venezuelans, a lot of the Venezuelans that I even interviewed, they weren't coming from Venezuela. They were coming from Peru. They were coming from Colombia. They were coming from Nicaragua, all these surrounding countries. And so if that's where you actually came from, we might go and deport you back to that third country because that's actually where you came from. And so there's a lot of issues there. I think it's going to be cleared up. This process has been a little slow and methodical, but I think it's going to be cleaned up a little bit better. And it's going to be a well-oiled machine, just like the way it was with Biden allowing them in. It's going to be a well-oiled machine allowing them back out. And so I think you're going to see some major changes in these numbers as well. What else can we talk about when it comes to border security? How about the economic impact? We rarely talk about this. The economic impact in the public education system. I live in Texas, and Texas spends billions with a B, billions of dollars educating illegal alien children. And we spend billions of dollars giving tuition to illegal aliens into our colleges. And that's the same thing for a lot of states around the country. And putting American citizens second or last, but giving the priority to illegal aliens. The benefits that they receive, a lot of times you'll hear the illegal aliens, I don't receive any benefits. You might not receive them directly. Now, under the Biden administration, they did get them directly. But sometimes because of the child, they get them through the child, or they get them through a sponsor. And they, nevertheless, they still get those benefits. They get housing, they get money, they get food stamps, and that's money that you and I are paying to support this. So the public school system has been hampered very, very hard throughout the country, especially in the smaller counties and cities around the United States. The criminal justice system obviously has been impacted tremendously with sheriff's departments and police departments and jails. They don't have the manpower. They don't have additional deputies or police officers. Still the same personnel, yet the influx of illegals came in. Some of them committed crimes, and here we are having to deal with that problem. Then, of course, the healthcare system. They use the ER as their regular doctor, and they go deliver babies. They get everything fixed, and they pay nothing. You and I have to pay for those costs. And so one of those examples is Denver Health. I think they were in debt like $150 million or more. Why? Because they were providing free services to illegal aliens. Let's not even talk about California. We know that's a mess over there. So it's an economic impact. And so one of the things that people tell me, well, the illegals provide, a lot of services in this country, and yes, they do. And will they make money? Well, they do. But the majority of the money is sent back to their countries. And for example, last year alone, Mexican nationals, Mexican illegal aliens in this country sent back almost $65 billion to Mexico. 65 billion. Think about that. That is the money that is making Mexico function and is part of their GDP. When you take away $65 billion from their economy, it's going to hurt. Mexico only has 110 million people in population. And so they're a lot smaller and they depend on that money. The family members depend on that money. You hear the stories, well, I'm sending money back so I could build my house in my little village, in my town, in Mexico, and then I'm going to go back. And that actually never happens. And so that money is not staying here. It's not into the federal income tax service. They're not providing that. And so I think that part of the legal immigration system, that something could be done. I mean, it existed before with the Braceros program and others, that people want to come in this country, get a special permit because you're going to be an agricultural worker. Okay, maybe we vet you. Number one, we make sure that you're going to be here to do what you say you're going to do, and we vet you that you're not a terrorist, and we allow you to come in on a very, very special circumstance because you want to work in the fields. I don't see there's something there that we have to fix. We have to fix it. A lot of people don't even want to have that conversation, but we have to have that conversation because we have to fix that part of it. Because you cannot categorize that person, that economic illegal alien, with Tren de Aragua gang member or cartel member. You just can't. They're different people, different categories, and therefore we have to recognize that they're separate, kind of together but separate, right? The left wants to call them all immigrants, and it really upsets me. I did an interview in Univision in Spanish because they call them all inmigrantes, immigrants, and they're not. They're illegal aliens, that's one category, and they're immigrants. My parents are immigrants. They came to this country legally, and they're legal immigrants and U.S. naturalized citizens from a long time ago, and they assimilated to this country. Assimilation. I wrote that in my book. I wrote a book that I haven't told you about, but I wrote a book 4 years ago about the shooting in Mexico, about my career, and it's very explicit about what happened to me in Mexico and my partner. I urge you to grab a copy, and I'll give you the name of it in the website. But at the end of the book, I wrote, and I'm trying to see if I have a copy here next to me, but I wrote about what I know, my expertise about border solutions and border security. And man, it's kind of eerie to, if you read it today, you think I wrote it yesterday with a lot of the things that are happening. And it's just because it's been around for a long time, but now it's at a different level. And the surge that's happening right now, I write about that there. So you could get it's called Agent Under Fire. The entire title is Agent Under Fire, A Murder and a Manifesto, but you'll find it on Amazon under Agent Under Fire, or if you look me up on my social medias, you'll find it there as well. But the reason I was telling you that, because all that information about that I put in the book is happening today. It's still the same thing. It's still something that is still occurring on a daily basis here. And so the bigger picture that I want to close off here, that we need to kind of wrap around our minds around, sorry, my laptop is moving here, is to wrap around the idea of national security, which is the big picture. Why do we care about Venezuela? Because Venezuela, they're communist, socialist communist. By the way, so is the new president of Mexico and the prior president, Avila. They're socialist communist. They have a very different ideology than we do. But here's the problem, is that Mexico's friends are our enemies. Cuba, Venezuela, China. My goodness, these are, thank you for putting up a copy of the book. There it is right there. This is where we have to look at. China has had a heavy presence in Mexico for a long time, not just our country. And so Venezuela, they're known to be associating with Hezbollah and Iran. My goodness, who do you think Tren de Aragua is? These are their soldiers that they have sent into our country to disrupt our way of life and our American way of life. So this is where we have to send our mentality to, and also start changing the way we think about these groups. They're not gangs, they are terrorists, and terrorists that have committed actually more crimes and more murders against Americans than any other of the terrorists that we're used to naming. They've created a lot more damage. And so this is a kind of subject that I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's going to continue. And but with a very different optimistic view. I know it's very doom and gloom every time I talk about this subject, but it's just the nature of the subject. But I do have faith in this administration. I do have faith in our new leaders that they're gonna, because you're seeing the people that are placing in these organizations and these agencies, they're gonna make a very big difference because they understand the problem that I'm talking about, that we recognize the threat. And because they do, they're gonna make very, very good adjustments. And it's gonna take us back to our country, that our kids could ride their bikes without any problem in our neighborhoods, that we could drive to parts of town that we've never been able to ride before. So I'll leave you with this: get involved. Get involved. People ask me, what can I do? Listen, you getting involved at the local level is the best thing you could do. That's where you're going to have the major, major impact, is in your community. Do you know who represents you? Who your city council person is that represents your neighborhood? That'll fill the pothole or the light post that's out? Do you know their name? Do you have their phone number? That's where you start. Find out, have a conversation with them. Remember, they work for us. They're there for you. So you could tell them what's going on. Your county commissioners, your parish commissioners, your county judge, they represent you. They make a lot of decisions. Remember COVID? They were the ones that didn't allow us to go into certain stores and had to cover our faces. So they have a lot of power at the local level, at your school boards. Go to a meeting once in a while. It's not a big deal. Once a month, check it out. You'd be surprised how much you learn about what these people are doing, spending your money there locally. And because from local politics, it streams up all the way to the White House. We're all very gathered and focused on what's happening in Washington, D.C., and that's okay. And at the state level, that's okay. But it starts at your local level. I hope I've been able to give you a little bit of the insight of what's going on in Mexico right now, in the border and immigration, and leave you with some positive thoughts that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Remember that there's always a solution to everything. And why is there a solution to everything? Because we're alive, and because God has put us here for a purpose. And because we're here, we have the ability to make a change. No longer the days of standing by idle, doing nothing. Let's be a little bit active. Just become aware. Let's start right there. You become aware of what's going around your neighborhood, what's happening, and you'll be surprised how good it feels to be a patriot and exercise your civic duty. And I hope with this, I'll leave you. Thank you again for Tina Peters for allowing me to host. This is one of the few times I've ever done this, maybe the second time I've done this. So I apologize for the rough around the edges, but I just spoke to you like I usually speak to groups about what's going on. I thank you. Follow me on social media and we'll be in touch. And I wish everyone a great year, and God bless.
Hi, Tina Peters here.
See, today they go after you if you're investigating.
Yeah.
Or